Melissa and her friends thought they had hit the jackpot. They'd built their bikini car wash empire from the ground up. And now, a massive corporation called Interglobal was buying them out for a cool $2 million. The man sealing the deal was Mr. Sanders, a slick executive who promised them they'd stay on as presidents of their very own car wash division. For Melissa, this was more than money. It was power, prestige, everything she'd dreamed of. Her friends, Amy and Sunny, were a bit more skeptical. Amy, the lawyer of the group, didn't trust Sanders. But the deal was too good to pass up. $2 million and executive titles? They signed on the dotted line. The celebration didn't last long. Soon after the ink was dry, Sanders called Melissa into his office and dropped the bombshell.
Our accounting department has determined that the land itself is worth far more than the car washes. For a mere $2 million...
His real plan? To bulldoze every single one of their locations and build luxury condominiums. Melissa was floored. This wasn't just a business. It was their baby, built with their own hands, a place that gave jobs to dozens of women. Sanders was unimpressed by her pleas.
You can either stay on at the company and play ball, or you can quit, but...
Enraged and desperate, Melissa decided to fight fire with fire. Seeing an opportunity in Sanders' overwhelming arrogance, she played along with his advances, turning the tables on him. He laughingly agreed to sell the company back to her for $4 million, double what he paid, as long as she could come up with the cash by Friday. What the overconfident executive didn't know was that a tape recorder was running, capturing every word of his legally binding oral agreement. To add insult to injury, he then fired Melissa and all her friends. Now jobless and with only a few days to raise an impossible $4 million, Melissa gathered her friends. She had a crazy, audacious plan. They were going to leverage what they knew best, selling a fantasy. Her idea was to host a 24/7 telethon, selling lingerie directly to the nation. To direct this mad venture, they turned to the most unlikely of allies, Derek, Sanders' own nephew. Derek was a shy, aspiring film director who had been working for his uncle to make money for his big break. He was terrified of the idea, but Melissa's passion convinced him to join their cause. First, they needed a TV station. Melissa and Amy walked in and made their pitch to the station's devout owner. He was initially horrified by their plan to sell lingerie on his divinely inspired network.
Millions of dollars? Sell.
Declaring that the Lord does indeed move in mysterious ways, he agreed to rent them the station for the week. The bikini car wash crew was officially going into the lingerie business. Their initial attempts were a disaster. The skits were cheesy, the acting was stiff, and Derek's direction was rigid and uninspired. The phones were dead silent. Melissa realized they weren't connecting with the audience. They needed to inject some real emotion, some genuine fantasy, into the broadcast. Melissa took Derek aside, encouraging him to stop being so rigid and to put some real passion into his work. The team regrouped and changed tactics. They threw out the old scripts and started improvising, creating fun, sexy, and humorous scenarios. One skit featured a bored housewife whose life is transformed by the lingerie. Another had a police officer getting seduced by a speeding driver. The energy shifted, and the show became genuinely entertaining. The phones started ringing. That's when Melissa made a game-changing announcement live on air.
1000th lingerie order will be allowed to come down here to Lingerie Central to enact your own fantasy.
The effect was instantaneous. The phone lines exploded. Orders for thousands, even 15,000 pieces, started flooding in. Meanwhile, Sanders was watching from his office, fuming. He dispatched a man named James Marshall, claiming to be from the Federal Communications Administration, to shut down the broadcast.
It's illegal to put pornography on national television?
Marshall arrived at the studio, a stuffy bureaucrat ready to bring the hammer down. But he hadn't counted on Amy. As the company lawyer, she met him head-on, engaging him in a brilliant legal debate over the definition of smut. While Amy kept Marshall distracted, the rest of the crew faced another crisis. She decided to clean up, grabbing a fire hose and spraying down the set. Sparks flew, a fire erupted, and the studio was forced to shut down for repairs. It seemed like the final nail in the coffin. But it was Derek who rallied the troops.
I mean, and we've almost earned $4 million.
Inspired by his words, they worked through the night, rebuilding the set and getting the station back on the air. A guilt-ridden Sonny had the legal department type in a new clause, one that made Sanders' $4 million verbal buyback offer a legally binding part of the agreement. The deadline arrived. The girls walked into the Interglobal boardroom for the final meeting. Sanders was smug, surrounded by his international board members. He slid the final papers across the table, informing them that he had taken the liberty of removing their positions from the company. Then Melissa played her hand. She placed a cashier's check for $4 million squarely on the table. Sanders' jaw dropped. That's when Amy calmly pointed to the new clause in the contract he was about to sign. The chairman, a stern-looking man, broke into a smile. He revealed that he himself had purchased several items from their telethon for his wife. He was disgusted by Sanders' deceitful and unprofessional conduct. In front of the entire board, he declared Sanders fired. In a final act of goodwill, the chairman told the girls to keep the $4 million. They had their company back. Back at the car wash, life was returning to normal. And Derek? He received a letter. A national television network wanted him to direct a documentary. It was his big break. The girls had not only saved their company, but they had also launched a new career, all thanks to a little bit of fantasy.